everyone, it's Robin Cavallaro with the Robin Cavallaro Group of REMAX 100, soon to be Realty Group. Or maybe I don't know. I'm all confused. So go with the flow here, guys. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. I got Ethan Wise of Goosehead Insurance with us. So welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Super excited.
Yeah. So Ethan's dad at one point in time was a Navy pilot, then got out, and with the job he took when Ethan was a little bitty guy, you said you moved 5 times in what? How many years?
So we originally moved when I was 2 years old, so that was '03, and then we moved back. We I was born in Annapolis, and then we moved to Davidson, North Carolina. Then we moved to Chicago, and then Atlanta, and then New York, and then back to Maryland, all between when I was two to when I was in second grade. So I guess that would be '09. So 7 years,
That's
5 and
crazy.
7.
Yeah. So while you weren't a military brat, you still had the same experience as a lot of military brats, with constantly going to different schools, moving to different areas. And every time you get comfortable, mom and dad would come up and go, "Hey, not so fast. We're going somewhere else today." So how tough was that? Like starting kindergarten here, doing first grade here, second grade here, and then moving back to Annapolis for third grade.
Yeah, so a lot of different temperatures. One thing, like, North Carolina, much better weather than upstate New York, up in Buffalo where we were. So,
Oh, God.
we had winters that were 9 months up there in Buffalo, Rochester area, but also North Carolina was much different. But school wise, I know for in fact Chicago, we were there for about 9 months. So like that's just one school year. So by the time I got to know these kids, when I was in kindergarten, first grade, trying to make friends, we pack up and move to right to the next spot. So, there's pros and cons with that, right? So the pros are, you know, I'm getting to meet a lot of new people rapidly. So, I mean, I guess people that were moving in middle school and high school, it might have been a little more difficult, but kind of like from my perspective, being younger, you're just meeting a bunch of people rapidly. So you're kind of getting a wide reach and kind of developing those people skills, which I think did translate to who I am now. But I guess cons would be, you get close to these people that you become friends with, and then you just pack up and go. I still connect with people that I know from there, believe it or not, just crossing paths through social media. So, things worked out great, but yeah, just constant moving kind of was the name of the game for us. But you live, you learn, right?
It's like I can't imagine. I graduated from high school with the same people I went to kindergarten with. So, and then my kids, they only moved every 4 years. So they got to be nice and comfortable before they were like, "Oh, time to move again." So, you know, um, well, what's interesting is I met you at an Eagle Title networking event or their anniversary party or something like that. One of those fun events that Terry and Brooke and the rest of the crew throw. And we got to talking about this, and that's when you mentioned your dad was military before. So I do appreciate you chiming on with me. And I felt like, in light of everything we've been watching on the media between the horrific damage that Helene did to North Carolina, and then what was it, Milton, with what it just did to parts of Florida, it got me thinking that, when I went to refinance my house and Aaron, your manager, helped me with the insurance at the time, I discovered that I was grossly underinsured. I mean, if I had had either a major car accident or a major issue with my house, I don't know that I would have had enough money there to cover it. In fact, I know I would not have. And I would have been in such deep financial trouble because I didn't have someone at the time looking out for me. So let's talk about how people should be looking at their policies now, making sure they have insurance. Are they properly covered? Are they underinsured, overinsured? What's the best route to go right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I kind of run into that, not luckily not every time, but some people that are going through refinance opportunities, you kind of just want to make sure that those things are kind of lined up properly where we double check and make sure, hey, making sure they didn't have any additions on their home, making sure that they didn't like major upgrade their bathrooms and their bedrooms because that's what's going to make that replacement cost much higher, right? So if you have, more of a builder's grade home, the replacement cost is going to be a lot lower than if you were to upgrade those things. So that's when we go through those opportunities, we always, dot our I's, cross our T's to make sure that all that stuff's lined up. But we just want to make sure that nothing additionally was added to the home. And that's something that we go through our discovery process to make sure that you are properly insured. I will say that I had a personal experience with one of my clients where they weren't insured properly. They were insured, their townhouse was insured as a condo when
Oh,
actually when I asked, I said, hey, are you liable for the roof and the exterior? And they said, yeah. And then I told them, well, that's a completely different policy. So they were underinsured by, it was like 200 to $250,000, which is pretty significant.
I mean, like, that makes me nervous because I can just imagine if you have a disaster and they go, oh, here's $250,000 less than what it's going to cost to rebuild. And you just look at them like, what do I do? I mean, at that point, do you just walk away and go, here, Mr. Bank, take the keys, I'm out?
Yeah, so that stuff can be tricky, when it comes to those sorts of things. And that's where we like to step in. One, I'm, an insurance broker where I'm able to find a bunch of different options, but it's also kind of just being that, you know, that person there to help you with these sorts of things to make sure that you're not, you know, going to have troubles when there were to be a big claim, like where a hurricane came through and God forbid completely took out your home. Some people don't really think about that. They're like, I feel like some people might just be like, we have an insurance policy, it'll take care of us. But you got to go through it with a fine tooth comb and make sure that you have the proper coverage in case that were to happen. No one likes to pay for insurance, but you want to make sure that you have it in place. God forbid if something were to happen in that sort of circumstance.
Yeah, no, no, I don't like paying for y'all. I'm gonna be honest. I don't. However, when the hail damaged my roof and my siding, and I spent $1,000 to get all new siding on my old house and a brand new roof instead of spending 35,000, I was a very happy camper. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So one of the differences between what y'all do and what a lot of other insurance companies do is you're a broker, so you shop it around to everyone for people, where Goosehead doesn't issue the actual policy itself. Where if they went to State Farm, USAA, Nationwide, all good companies, don't get upset, then that's your policy is only with them and you can't shop it around to other, you have to physically shop it around with other companies. And that's something that I did not realize that y'all did until I called Aaron and needed help.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So we have over 70 different companies that we work with in the area. So what we do as, an insurance advisor, we gather the information on the front end and find the best option on the back end. We do all the shopping and heavy lifting for you, and we come back with the best rate. Given claims and driving history and how long you've been with an insurance company, there's many different factors where when we take in the information, some companies are ineligible right from the get-go. Where we can always pivot. We can always pivot to a different option. And then there are, agencies where they only have one option or they have two, where if one of those is out the door, it's pretty much either that's the final answer. We don't have anything for you, or this is the only other option we have. So it's nice to be able to have this large portfolio of carriers where we're able to essentially shop the entire market when it comes to those independent agencies where we're able to find all these options.
No, and I think that's pretty awesome. It's, because again, I know nothing about insurance. My mom worked in it for 30, 40 years. Don't know. I lost track. Um, and she would rattle off all this stuff, and I just kind of glazed over because she's like, "What's your limit?" I'm like, "I don't know." "What's your deductible?" "I don't know." I'm like, "I know who the policy's with because it was through her company." But, she's long gone, and without a Ouija board, she's not helping me with this. So I do appreciate how helpful y'all are. So let's talk flood insurance. There's a whole lot of people right now who did not have flood insurance. And correct me if I'm wrong. If the water is coming from the ground level into your house, you need flood insurance. If the roof flies off and the water comes in, are you still covered under your normal policy that way? Or window breaks or something like that?
Yeah, so when flood insurance takes into account, right? So when does actually flood insurance come to the table? Flood insurance comes in when two or more properties or two or more acres are damaged in the result of a flood claim, right? So it can't just be your house. It's got to be either two total acres are flooded or two or more properties. And that's something that the adjusters come out and make sure that that's the case. With that, for the new home closings and people that are interested in getting flood, it's a little bit different, right? So if you're closing on a home, there's no wait period for getting flood insurance. So if you're in a flood zone and your lender is saying, we need a flood insurance policy in place, there's a no wait period. So let's say you close on the 30th of October. You'll have the policy start the 30th of October for a flood policy. For the people that, don't have a flood policy in place and they see that, there's a lot of rain coming, there's a hurricane coming, you can't just go online and get one just because you see it coming. There's a 30-day wait period for flood insurance. So we advise, hey, if you see value in this, and I highly recommend it, you should definitely consider that. Some people are like, we're not sure how our home's going to react, our brand new home's going to react in a big rainstorm. Let's get it and just make sure that we're protected, because you never know what happens with the first one or two big storms. And some people, will want to do that. So we could set that up for them. But when it comes to the people that don't have flood insurance, you can see the kind of catastrophic damage, unfortunately, that happened, with Hilton. We just advise people that if it fits your budget and you see the value, we highly recommend it.
So what happens if you've got a walk-up basement and the drain gets covered with leaves, which is highly likely now that they're all coming off, and we have a really heavy rain, and all of a sudden that area outside your basement door fills up and water comes into your basement? Is that considered flood insurance, or is that considered normal homeowners insurance?
So any exterior water that comes into the home, that would be covered under flood insurance.
Mhm.
Obviously, if you see a bunch of leaves at the drain and some sticks and stuff, you want to check that stuff probably weekly, bi-weekly, just to
Oh,
make
right
sure.
now you want to check it daily
Yeah,
because I've got that walk-up basement and I go out there and I check that sucker every single day. And every time I see leaves in that little area, they go into a bag because we're not taking a chance on that. Yeah.
yeah, and especially now with all the leaves starting to fall, there's more of a chance for them to cover the drain. But my parents have the exact same thing where there's steps that go right down. There's a drain that's always clogged. And when I was living at my parents, my dad would always tell me, go clean the drain, go clean the gutter. So I was used to doing that, and I guess that was a little background before I started working insurance. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, you always want to make sure that it's clean. But I mean, if that were to happen, it would be covered.
Under flood, but not under your regular homeowners.
Correct, because that is exterior water coming into the home. But
Yeah.
that also kind of takes into account where it's the two or more properties or two or more acres. So it would not be covered under that. It,
It,
it kind of
it,
depends on the adjuster when it comes to sudden and accidental. If, you're away for a night, it all kind of depends on the adjuster. I couldn't give a definitive answer on that.
yeah.
But more cookie cutter flood claims, it's essentially the two or more properties or two or more acres.
So in other words, don't be stupid, don't be lazy, maintain the outside of your property to minimize the risk.
Correct. And
And
that's
I can
also,
say that yeah.
it's also, the people that, can see those things and take preliminary action on it before a big storm, you're going to put yourself in a much better position in the event of potentially having a claim. You want to make sure that all the windows are locked, all the doors are locked, so they don't come swinging open in a big hurricane and just a bunch of water piles in overnight, and you wake up and your basement's flooded. You want to make sure that you batten down all the hatches, clean the drains, make sure nothing's blocking. That's what we recommend 100% of the time.
Well, and the other part too is if you know a big storm's coming, we lived in Norfolk for 4 years. And when we got hurricanes coming through, we took the precaution to make sure that, if we needed sandbags, we did that. If, made sure everything in the yard was picked up, put away, all outside furniture was put into the garage, things like that. So nothing could become a projectile. So let's switch gears a little bit. And my clients look at me like I've got three heads and, they're all spinning in circles when I suggest they get earthquake insurance. Because we did have the earthquake here in 2011. And I've seen properties that actually have damage to them. Whereas like everybody's mocking going, oh, the chair fell over. It's like, it looked like it only shook like this. But we've seen cracks in some foundations that there's a good chance they came from the earthquake. And then we had another one not too long ago, closer to Baltimore, Howard County, somewhere up there. So is that something that you have a conversation with people about, or do you get the request often?
I have I have gotten the earthquake question a couple times, when one happens and I'm talking to a client the next
Yeah.
week, they're more of a chance that people are going to ask. I know we had that crazy one. It was like about, what was it, like 10 years ago or so that we
Yeah, it
had.
was 2011 because we had moved here in 2010 and was the following year.
Yeah.
And I screamed at my children because I thought they were running through the house at Mach 1 about to destroy it. And it turns out they were laying on the floor like sweet little angels watching TV. And then it dawned on me what had just happened because I'm an East Coast girl. I've never been through an earthquake before. This is all foreign to me, and it was the weirdest thing ever. So, yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, we can write policies or we can direct people to proper locations that offer earthquake insurance. If we can't write it ourselves, it's not covered under regular homeowners insurance for those sorts of things. I mean, it's not too expensive to get into Maryland comparing to over by San Andreas or wherever
Look, if
earthquake.
you're buying your house in San Andreas, right there on the fault line, you got, I'm sorry, I am, no, it's sort of like, and I'm gonna say this, it's sort of like buying your house out in the Outer Banks and the house on the stilts where the hurricane's coming underneath it, and you got these little twigs holding your house up, so there's a good chance it's just gonna collapse. Not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a risky person. I don't bet, I don't gamble, and I don't build my house somewhere where it's likely to collapse or fall into a giant crater.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, that's also kind of the same thing with the flood, right? Where more people ask questions when things happen after the fact, or more people ask questions when they know something's going to happen, and that's kind of just how we make sure that we advise people. The flood policies don't start 30 days until after, unless you're closing on a new home. It's all just trying to find the right angle and make sure that if a client's interested in those sorts of things, we have the tools at our disposal.
that's all. All right, so let's kind of switch gears a little bit more. where I don't have major bling, don't even bother going into my house. There are some people, men, women, that have jewelry that could come close to a very nice down payment on a house. Sorry, guys. Um, do they need to get that appraised to get it covered? How does all of that work?
Yeah, so we have a wide range of jewelry companies that we work with. There's one in particular that I like to work with. Um, they offer $0 deductible, so if anything were to happen to it, like if it were to be cracked, lost, stolen, anything in general, it's a $0 deductible. But when it comes to appraisals, typically any singular item over 25,000 is when we would need an appraisal. I believe within the last 3 years. Don't quote me on that. I think it's either the last 2 or 3 years where they need an appraisal because how expensive a singular item is. But people don't really. It's not that expensive. Like I have my watch insured with them. It's $25 a year.
So like your Apple Watch?
Yeah, regular Apple Watch.
Seriously?
Um, what is it? The Series 6, one of the Nike ones. Yeah, Series 6, Nike one. Bought it at Best Buy for, 350. I was just like, might as well. You never know. Um, for jewelry, it's more important for those sorts of things, especially for people buying new homes, just got engaged, just got married. You want to make sure that that's covered as well. And that's something that can be written into an insurance policy.
So when someone calls and says my ring was lost and they file the claim through the insurance policy, how do you know they didn't just lose it under the bed? They get their money for it and all of a sudden they're cleaning a week later and they find the ring. Did they send you the money back? Or is it
I
just,
have not personally had that situation before, so I'm not sure how to properly answer that. That's all kind of with the adjusters of the insurance company. You know, I don't want to give the wrong answer there. It can be a
yeah.
gray area with the jewelry, with those sorts of things. I do know for a fact, appraisals for anything over 25,000, if you want to insure, you'd have to have an appraisal for it. That's all the adjustment side, and that's kind of how the servicing side works for a policy and how to, make sure everything ends up right.
So, and that's what I'm thinking. There are some people in this world that don't exactly have ethics and morals, you know. So it's like they get it insured and they lose it, collect the money, and now they got a free ring. And that's what I'm like, there's got to be somewhere in there to kind of protect the insurance companies to make sure that, because that is insurance fraud. Let's call it what it is. To make sure that things like that don't happen. So guys, don't do that because you could go to jail for fraud. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, if you get caught, you get caught and you'll be in trouble. But also,
Yeah.
when you put those sorts of claims in, they're gonna be on they're gonna be on your record for 5 years. So whenever you try to get a policy or whenever anything comes up and they ask, hey, what happened here? You're gonna have to explain it. And that's gonna be on your record for 5 years.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of venture down a little rabbit hole for a second. So follow me. And we're going to have this conversation. Keep in mind, those of you in the military, no one's trashing USAA. Okay. Had them for almost 30 years. They're phenomenal. So when someone is with the military, is it a good idea to call someone like you and compare their options versus USAA? Or is it just, like we had them, we never even considered, it was never an option to go with anyone else. Um, Good idea, bad idea.
I mean, it's always a good idea
Mm,
to just test the market, right? You never
yeah.
know what else is out there. Um, I will speak on behalf of USAA, from my perspective personally, being completely transparent. They do have phenomenal auto insurance rates. They do a good job there. For younger people that just have an auto policy. they do a really good job. On the homeowners insurance side, they tend to be a little bit higher than what we have. Not every time, sometimes they're lower. It's always kind of a package deal for people that are closing on new homes or going through refinances where they can see, what numbers are we looking at. But USAA, they do a great job with kind of rates. But the thing is with us, we do not have USAA, so we're a great complementary kind of what does another broker have? And that's kind
Yeah.
of where clients can do a side by side comparison and they can sit down and evaluate which option makes the most sense for their family and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and that's always the best option. It's like anytime you compare all of your options, then you know you're getting, I hate to say the best bargain, and it's not always the best value is a better term, because if you go with the cheapest option, that may not be your best option. So, and again, don't step over dollars to pick up pennies, because
Exactly.
you're going to end up wasting money in the long run. So what is the best advice you can give to someone right now in regards to their home, their house, their jewelry, business, whatever like that for insurance?
The best advice I would give somebody for their insurance is just to double check and make sure that, you have the proper coverage on there, right? You
Mhm.
know, if you look at a policy and you're not the most, you don't have that understanding, give your insurance agent a call and just make sure, hey, I want to make sure that I have enough coverage just in case there were to be a storm to come my way. Or, I have this auto insurance and I don't think I have enough liability property damage if I were to hit one or two vehicles. And then after that, I would have to pay the rest out of my pocket. You know, we have insurance for a reason. Having more coverage is the way to go. You just want to make sure that if the insurance is in place that you're already paying for, you might as well have enough coverage, or you're going to have to make up for it, that savings, through your own bank account when there were to be limits expensed on the insurance policies. So that's my probably piece of advice, is making sure that you have that coverage. And then we always recommend an umbrella policy. You always want to have at least one times your net worth of liability coverage if someone were to come after you in a lawsuit, or if you were to be at fault for an accident, where you have that umbrella policy built in, where you have an additional $1 million on top. And we can kind of discuss that further. That's also a rabbit hole, but you want to make sure that you're covered properly when it comes to the worst that can happen. And that's what the insurance is for, to make sure that you're protected during the worst day of your life, potentially.
I completely agree. And because, I mean, like I said, right now, with what we're watching in North Carolina, the Asheville area, and what we're watching along mostly the west coast of Florida, it's it's bad. And there's a little town, North Carolina, it doesn't exist anymore. So we're seeing this damage, and that happens every year between tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, lots of natural disasters. So sadly, guys, things happen. Car accidents happen every day. People fall every day. So if you're not working with the insurance agent you love, call Ethan and guarantee he will take great care of you. Check out your policy, make sure you're properly covered. Make sure your deductible is not too high that you can't afford to write that check if you got a problem. And yeah, and he will happily answer any of your questions anytime. So yeah. And since he kind of knows what it was like to have your life ripped apart every other year or every year, he kind of relates to the whole moving thing too. So I appreciate it. Yeah. So any last advice?
I mean, yeah, the deductible is a good point where, people like to save as much money as they can. The best way to do it is to raise your deductible. But, if your monthly mortgage payment is lower than your deductible, it kind of defeats the purpose of, all right, well, you're gonna have to pay an additional X amount, but you're only saving, $10 a month to double or triple your deductible. And that's kind of where the opportunity costs and the value kind of comes in, where you have an advisor to say, look, if you had your deductible at this amount, would be your monthly insurance, or this.
Yep.
Some people like to save as much as they can. They say, jack the deductible up to this amount. I don't want to be paying that much. But then when that storm comes through, you could be in trouble. So,
Yeah.
making sure everything's flatlining and staying in the right spot. I think the good point about bringing up the deductible is, it's always a question for us.
I mean, in my world, I've seen some people, just to get their monthly payment for their mortgage down where they want it, they'll settle for like a $10,000 deductible. And I'm like, holy mother, Mary, mother of God, if we are sitting here trying to get your payment down $15 because that makes it affordable, where are you going to come up with 10,000 if you have a problem? And most likely, unless you're dealing with something catastrophic, either roof, siding, like a water heater exploding and having to get all new flooring or things like that, you're never going to use your insurance. And not too many people, aside from, what was it, 22, I think it was, when we had that major hailstorm that went through. Because my old neighborhood, almost everybody got a roof. It was like Oprah. And you get a roof, and you get a roof, and you get a roof. So, and I got siding too. So, yeah. But I really appreciate you doing this with me. And honestly, guys, if you got questions, call Ethan directly. He will answer them. He knows this stuff. And if you're curious about your policy, get him to shop it for you. Compare. What's the worst that happens? You find out that you've got the best policy right now.
Yeah. And
And
I'll say that as well. People come to me and say, hey, Ethan, can you look at my policies? If I have a better option, I'm going to tell them I have a better option, and here's what I propose. If I do not, I will tell you straight up, look, stay where you are. When your renewal comes in, reach back out to me. Or, hey, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Your policy renews in April. Let's talk in March when you get that renewal letter, and let's revisit. I'm always here. Doors always open, always here to help. I'm going to make sure that either I'm going to provide you the best option, or I'm going to tell you you have the best option, and then give you professional advice on, hey, maybe you want to tweak this coverage, or, hey, my replacement cost came out to, $500,000 and you're currently insured at $400,000. Making those adjustments is, how I conduct business, and I want to make sure that I put that point across.
And that's great advice. And I really appreciate that, because people need to know that you're not going to sit there and go, I can do slightly better so that you get paid. And just to clarify, the person who comes to you, who's getting the insurance, their prices are not jacked up for using you, but so you can shop it around. You actually get paid a different way other than directly from the consumer. So they're not going to be paying, a huge extra fee just by using your services.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get nervous when they hear insurance broker versus, just like mortgage broker or whatever. They think there's something extra involved, and there isn't. So at least not for them. Yeah. So, but I greatly appreciate you doing this, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Eagle event or sooner. And then, yeah, and we'll put all your contact information out there so people can call you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Robin. I hope I was able to provide some insight.
No, I appreciate it. All right. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye.